I'd like to call to order the June 13th meeting of the Clive City Council. Would the clerk please call roll?
Mayor Edwards,
Here.
council members Klein,
Here.
McCoy,
Here.
Judkins,
Here.
you, Sirkant.
Here.
And Weaver is absent.
Very good. If you all would rise and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we look at the agenda, there is one item we need to remove. Action item 6. Action item 6 should be removed from the agenda. One move. We have a second.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the amended agenda. Further discussion, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Next, we have our citizens presentation. This is the opportunity for anyone to approach the council on an item that is not on the agenda. And Matt, do we have anyone online? While you're checking that, I'll remind everyone of our principles. Clive supports the pillars of character counts, endeavoring at all times to promote and model the principles of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. In conducting our work, we expect that all participants will act in a respectful manner consistent with these principles. So at this point, we'll entertain members of the public. If you come forward, you need to identify yourself with your address. And again, we're interested in hearing things that are germane to council business. Yes, sir, if you'd identify yourself for the record.
I'm sorry, I'm hard of hearing. I was just waiting for public comments.
We are at that point.
Oh, okay. I'll be very brief. I'm Chad Brubaker, candidate for Iowa House 28. Try to stick to my notes here, so I'll be very, very brief. I had an election disruption that I was maliciously prosecuted by Clive Police on a simple misdemeanor case of which, NYMaster you guys have hired to do those, involving Sears Law of Ankeny and Des Moines, which has no personal jurisdiction to the city of Clive. Both the city clerk and the police refusing to hand over all the records. And it looks like NYMaster filed a false 2024 May invoice, but they won't turn that over to confirm. Haley Hermanson at NYMaster had me evicted from my Waukee apartment in February of 2020. And there's a pending Iowa Civil Rights Act discrimination litigation involving that. And it looks like they're trying to go on a fishing expedition with Sears Law about attorney-client privileged information. I'm suggesting the city of Clive turn over all the records about the situation so that I can do what I need to do. I don't even have evidence to even call witnesses at trial because they're hiding it. And I also suggest that city of Clive think about hiring a full-time city attorney so this doesn't happen again like West Des Moines has. And also to table the pay packages of the Clive chief and city manager until the next meeting when you guys have full information. Thank you. Unless you have questions.
I see no questions from the council. Thank you. Anyone else this evening?
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Rose Heacock Smith. I reside at 9015 Indian Hills Drive in Clive. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to say something. I'm an occupational hand therapist and I work in the Urbandale area. But I was excited last month to hear that you guys are entertaining the idea of ADUs. I'm a little nervous, sorry. And so I wanted to kind of further, I guess, a citizen perspective on that. So as an occupational therapist, I work with many clients who are dealing with family caregiving situations, which I know they had mentioned last time was kind of one of the primary reasons for ADUs. Of course, you guys heard about parents aging in place, but it goes beyond that to adult children who maybe don't work out in a group home or they have special needs that the parents need to be more able to cater, but wanting to facilitate more independence, as well as we have several wonderful universities here in Des Moines And so we have students who are going on to college and maybe the dorm life isn't quite a right fit, or they're coming back from some of our other Iowa universities or out-of-state universities to do grad school here. There's a third level, which is affordable housing for those seeking to effectively integrate into community reintegration. And then I understand that there are some concerns that some may have as well, such as, with renting out, there is that risk of transient population taking away from kind of the safe neighborhoods y'all have created for us. As well as possibility of the ADUs being an eyesore to neighbors. So then you're looking at kind of your height ranges and stuff like that. But from a medical standpoint, especially if you're using it for caregiving, the ideal size would be like a ground level studio, which not all houses have a walkout basement to be able to do that for family members. And then if they're in the basement, climbing up and down those stairs, let's say it's a post hip or knee, that's not possible, right? So then having a space for a family member in the domain isn't as effective. But my personal testimony that I wanted to kind of bring this before and why I was looking into this is I have a sister who had a brain injury, and currently she's able to live independently in a rural Iowa community near my parents. However, if something happens to my parents, then, then I would be bringing her into my home. And I'm so fortunate to have the ability to do that. However, my home space would not be appropriate for that situation. So having an ADU would allow me to then allow her some autonomy while keeping her safe within my community and the community of Clive that y'all have created. So that being said, are there any questions or concerns? Thank you. With kind of their approach from a community perspective or anything further that I can kind of give you without being too long-winded.
Any questions or comments? Doug, I don't know if you want to talk about where we are with ADUs
I would say
briefly.
Sorry.
appreciate your comments tonight, and it does help get us into a direction, right? We need the input. We need folks to speak up. I personally am in favor of them with some tight parameters.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
What you're speaking of is within the parameters that I personally would be open to. It's so new that we've really got to, I don't want it to take long. I don't want to take
Right.
years to figure this out. But I personally would be in favor of something across the entire city that would allow this in every neighborhood with those tight parameters.
Absolutely. Because we want to keep the safety that y'all have done a really good job of facilitating, so.
Other questions from council? Otherwise, Doug will just give us a very brief overview of where we are.
Thank you. As you all are aware, this is a topic that staff has been reviewing, researching, considering for a couple of years. There hasn't been a significant outcry from the community yet to facilitate this type of dwelling within our community. So we haven't, as a staff, really been out in front suggesting that this is a priority for the city. I think you're now starting to hear that there's a little more community interest and metro area interest. So certainly I would expect a robust conversation during the strategic planning process to determine if it is a priority for staff direction over the next 12 months. And if that's the case, then staff will get to work, involve the community in those conversations, and develop a program and a policy that's supporting of our community needs.
Thank you, Doug. And Rose, thank you for coming. Our strategic planning session will be in August, so we'll be addressing that fairly quickly. So, thank you. Is there anyone else in this chamber to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda? If you'd come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Thank you. My name is Andy Hartman. I'm here on behalf of my brother, and not just him, but also a community that's part of Clive, the Taps Pub community. And I first I want to ask you guys to rethink the revocation of his liquor license. I know the initial reason was poor moral character, which I vehemently disagree with. He and I can let other people talk on this, but his moral character is top notch. I mean, he give the shirt off his back to anybody and everybody. But is what he's done is he's facilitated, and I know he's invited you guys down to TAPS before, and to see the community, see the people, that, you know, there's been no problems, complaints, or anything that's not. He's provided an environment for people to come together, you know, whether it's Thanksgiving, Christmas, or, I mean, he does things that people don't even know about. You know, he'll pay for, you know, somebody's diapers, or he'll, you know, so much food has he donated to Urbandale and Clive food banks. But he's done so much, but he's facilitated this, and it's brought so many people together. We've seen weddings, people, you know, meet lifelong partners, and people having a tough day, like that's where they meet. You know, it's a public house. And you know, we grew up really poor, and so we didn't have the education to know everything, like with the paperwork and administrative side of everything. But he's tried to do, he's willing, and he's done, as far as he knows, everything that's been asked. And whether, you know, obviously getting into business and then the different side of paperwork and all that, he's fixed everything, and he's willing to do anything that you guys ask to keep the liquor license, you know, going, or at least give him some time to, he cares more about the community than he does himself. Like, he's prepared to surrender the liquor license because he said that the appeal process is so hard to where TAPS will not, that they won't even be able to say open at all, and give them at least time to find a way to facilitate, you know, somebody else taking that, if it is him, if he's the issue, because TAPS can't be the issue. His moral character definitely isn't the issue. There is, whatever it takes on that end, he's willing to commit to. He's committed to the people there, and we're talking hundreds of people that's their spot, that's their home base, and they're not causing any problems. There's nothing wrong, and he's, you know, he's paying the taxes, paying his people. He takes care of his staff, takes care of the customers, but it gives these people a spot to meet and talk to each other, you know, other than a backyard barbecue or something. It's what he's doing. So I really just want to ask you guys to please reconsider, or at least give it some more time on the revocation part. Because he's putting the community first, and that's why he's prepared to just surrender his liquor license. And so he doesn't have to go through that appeal part where it hurts the community, and at least let him pass off that torch in a proper way. And that's really all I got. But if you guys have any questions, I can speak on his behalf, I think, or my behalf,
Any questions?
or
from
the
council?
community's behalf.
I was just gonna make a comment, you know, so personally, this was a difficult decision. You know, we spent a year on this.
Yeah, this has been,
Yeah, and I don't want to speak for the other council members, but I think if I was to guess, I'd say that they were probably in the same place, right? Like, I visited TAPS Pub. I liked it. I liked it a lot. But I do want to make the record clear. We gave multiple chances. We asked for certain things. They did not get done, right?
on the paperwork, like, and
Right.
he, and I could say the same thing, like, he can be a little stubborn on some things, but
But that's
he just didn't know. And we didn't grow up with the ability,
and I get that.
knowing, like, you know, we didn't even know how we even, like, anything really works as far as like a business side or
Right.
legal side,
And I
or,
understand there's a learning curve to it, which is why we gave multiple chances here, right? We kept extending
and
that process, and he told us he was going to get counsel to help him. And so, you know,
well,
I just want to set the record straight, right? It's not like we just decided, oh, we just don't like him. We're going to get, like, that's the opposite of what we did.
from what I understand though, like, he did get like that paperwork fixed, and
It wasn't fixed. We spent a good hour and a half, I would say. I don't know if it was a majority of one of our council meetings going through that paperwork and the deficiencies in them.
Well, on behalf of the community though, is there a way to at least give him a little bit, maybe I can help him get to the point where he can get that paperwork straight? Cause I know he's paid everything correctly.
So,
He just doesn't, some of the documentation part.
yeah.
And then that way, at least for the community, they can keep going and he can at very least get the torch passed.
No, and I understand, like I said, I liked when I visited, right? I thought, hey, this would be great to keep coming back to. I think, and council, please direct me if I'm incorrect, but now that we've made our decision and it's already, it's already been passed on to the appeal board, I don't think there's a decision. that we can-
Is there a way to, if he would, like agree with you and his council agreed, like at least delay it a month or some month, 2 months, that way it gives him time to look at, because he does care so much about the community, and that way he can pass the torch to the right person. So like,
I appreciate you coming here and, we take these things very, very seriously, right? And we don't just at the drop of a hat want to revoke somebody's liquor license. As a matter of fact, we went on and again, it was over a year that we've been dealing with this and just, there was a lot of opportunities here and it just seemed like it just always, it wasn't there. So with that being said, I mean, I heard everything. I visited TAPS. I like it. It's nothing against Mr. Hartman right there. It's just the process was so far down and there was just so many unanswered questions and we take this, but you gotta understand, we take this very, very seriously, right? This isn't something we do to drop a hat. And Mike, you've been on almost as long as I have. I mean, how many times have we done this?
I don't think we have.
I don't think we have either.
Revoke
Maybe one other time.
On 86th Street.
Yeah, that was the only other one, but we
Yeah,
take this
well-
very seriously. We went around the horn with your brother numerous times with numerous extensions. Okay, this wasn't a one-shot deal. There's a lot more to it than it is, but I appreciate your comments.
and well, to respond to that, like, I've known him his whole life. He's my brother, obviously, and hopefully it's not recording too much and you can hear me say this, but his brain is not as big as his heart. His heart is huge.
You'll
And
hear it.
I know he's totally committed
It's recorded.
to, doing everything right and, getting everything lined up paperwork wise and all that. Cause if he had $1, he'd give you $1 right now. And the paperwork part, he thought he was doing everything correctly. And I would even vouch for him, I can help him or find some counsel to make sure everything is correct. If you can at least give him, just wait on the appeal thing, if you guys both agree, because you would know, to like push back the appeal meeting. Because he's probably gonna surrender his license before then for the community to, at the very least. So that way it doesn't get, because it's
Yeah.
been,
Did you want
Let
to
me
make a
just
comment?
say a few things. One, there's been earlier, and this is a little late coming, the gentleman had already left, but the easy shots are to take at the chief, right? And there were some shots earlier from your brother at the chief on this issue. The individual that stood up earlier today took a cheap shot at the chief,
Good.
and walked out. And I'm glad you're not doing that today, because he has actually vouched for the bar when it comes to trouble, no trouble.
yeah, there's not,
No police calls, respectful folks. The chief has told us all of that. It comes down to you've had over a year to make that right. You're in the 11th hour. It's just not possible at this point.
Well-
Should have rallied the troops and got the paperwork done and the folks involved before. In my eyes, I'm just telling you my opinion because this was not easy for any of us, as Shrikant said. In my eyes, at this point, there were a lot of games played, and I welcome you to look at all the videos of the
Yeah,
last meetings.
I've watched them all.
A lot of games, right?
And
what I'm seeing is the surrendering of a liquor license at this point, and I've owned 4 bars, okay, in my life. The surrendering of a liquor license at this point is yet another game, because I understand what's being tried to be done, and it's another attempt to work around the law and the rules and won't by me be seen as a good thing, because once again, we're trying to circumvent the what is right. And that's all I'll say.
Can I
It is
respond to
out
that
of
real
our-
quick?
Sure, but it is out of our hands. My understanding is it's going to court on Tuesday. I wish the best for your brother in the court, in the hearing. If he wins, there is no hard feelings for me. I would probably say the rest of the council, the same thing. No hard feelings. We just move on. He's welcome to be in the community. He runs a great bar. He has 0 calls, 0 troubles. It came to, you've all watched the video, the magician magic tricks, the attempts to deceive. That's all.
I know him pretty well, and and you can ask anybody that knows me, I'm not gonna try to deceive you, but I don't think that he attempted to deceive anybody. I think he may have had some poor counsel, but then also on top of that, he was just trying to do what is best for everybody in the community. And that is, at least I know for a fact on this one, he is not looking, and I want to speak on behalf of the community of Taps Pub, that to at least keep that together.
I understand.
And
understand.
I mean, that's all I can do is ask.
I do
And,
understand.
and I'm sure I've taken up plenty of your guys' time, so. But, all right, is that it?
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for your input.
If,
Go
Your
ahead.
Honor, if I may ask for those that are online, if you do wish to speak during citizens' presentation, please go to the participant tab and then there's the emoji icons and you can raise your hand. And if you do that, then we will see that you wish to speak to the council during citizens' presentation and we'll unmute you.
Thank you, Matt. Is there anyone else in the chamber to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda? Sir, if you'd identify yourself for the record.
Yep, name is Paul Ellis, former resident of Clive, used to live on Primrose and over on the 100th. My sister used to serve on the council with you guys. You had said just a moment ago that it's about community support and you need outreach from the community. There's a bunch of us here that are here to support Tim. Would you guys be interested in giving us your support as well for the hearing, since you had said there'd be no hard feelings? Would you give us the approval that you guys would agree to let him stay as well?
I'm not clear on what you're asking. I mean.
Would the
it's
council be
out of
willing
our
to-
hands At this point.
But would the council be willing to give us a document saying that you would be perfectly okay with him staying in business, keeping his license? Because you said there's no hard feelings, that you guys would be okay with it. It was a hard decision. I mean, we're just
I'll
trying
let
to make
the
you give
legal
us a letter of
counsel-
support.
All that legal counsel answer on the legal side. I personally am not in the position because to my knowledge, he has not performed everything he was supposed to perform in over a year,
So
almost
that's
2
fine.
years.
That's,
And unless I saw all of that done and finished, he had 2 years, year and a half to do it. So I wouldn't be in the position to support him in court. If he's ready to go to court and gets all that together and can convince a judge of all that, again, I would be fine with him staying in the community, but I have not seen it, so I cannot make a decision like that. I would not sign on to a letter with that without knowing everything has been, he completely ignored the request from this council for over
Sure.
a year and a half.
no, that's fine.
So,
Else to add.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else in the chamber to address the council on a matter not on the agenda?
Sorry, guys. I'm also from Taps Pub. I am Stacy Campbell and I work at Taps. I spoke one of the last times we were all here. And this is my son, Sage Timothy, who is here and healthy and happy because of the many things that Tim does. And, I feel like I'm kind of beating a door if I tell you again how great he is, and that's fine. But I understand that asking for your guys' support for more time seems to be closed as well. But I want to make sure that you guys are aware of, you know, how great of a man Tim is and how deserving of being a bar owner he is. Whether that be down the road for you guys or somewhere else, I hope you guys respect that. He does great things, and I hope that the future of TAPS, wherever it does go, is also respected and loved and cared for the way that it is. And I hope that you guys take that into consideration, that we're doing what we have to do to keep this together since we can't. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, perhaps it would help if I just gave a posture of the
please,
proceedings.
yeah.
So the city council did make that decision back in February about whether to revoke the license or not. And at that point, when you've made your decision, that's up to the applicant to make an appeal. TAPS Pub did make an appeal to the division. The jurisdiction now does not lie with you to make any other decision. You've rendered your decision. It's now on appeal, and TAPS Pubs controls that appeal. They've appealed. That appeal is pending for hearing on Tuesday in front of the division. There will be an administrative law judge who will take up the full record, everything you've reviewed, everything that's been presented on the record, anything that the applicant wants to present on Tuesday will be considered by that administrative law judge. And it is that judge's decision what to do next. We don't make that decision. We just present essentially everything that's been presented for the last year to that judge for review. It is all in their hands. We don't control dismissing the appeal. We don't control continuing the appeal. That's all in the applicant's hands and up to the administrative law judge. So essentially, we're in the back seat of this bus that's moving down the road at this point. And the record has been opened and reopened for the last year, and all of the materials that have been submitted from Mr. Hartman, from his witnesses, from his accountant are part of that record going forward. So, and we probably will submit this as well to the extent that it's helpful, but there is no decision and action item that's in your hands this evening. It's all resting with the administrative law judge. I will add that I reached out to TAPS Pub's legal counsel twice this week to discuss the matter. And he was considering all options is the response I have. The hearing in front of the administrative law judge was also already continued once. It was supposed to occur last month, and they asked for 30 more days. I resisted. The court granted that additional extension. And then here we are today, 4 days before the hearing. So just to give you the procedural posture of where we are and where we've been. I know you've been on that road at least through February.
And then if he were to lose that one, could he appeal further or?
I'd rather not provide legal advice on the record, but there are other remedies for Mr. Hartman to consider. And I will also mention he is on his 5th legal counsel in the last year. So he does have new legal counsel as well.
So from what I understand on that appeal part though, then the building would not be able to have a liquor license for a year if he loses. And so that's why he wants to put the community first. And then my next question would be, on Tuesday, will at least not, you said like all the information will be in front of the judge. Can you at least speak on behalf of his moral character? Because I think he has a positive, a very good moral character, and at least not argue against that. If there's paperwork issues or whatever, but not say that he has a poor moral character. Because I know that was like the first reason or whatever from.
So it remains the reason for revocation, which was decided by the council. The city council made those determinations back in February. That determination and that proceeding, so to speak, will all go in front of the judge for consideration. As to your first question, I guess I couldn't write it down. Oh, the license revocation. If that goes through, that's correct. If a license in Iowa is revoked by that administrative law judge, the law provides that that premises may not reapply or have a new license for 1 year.
Correct. And he can't even appeal losing that, or can he?
And that's what Mr. McCoy just
Yep.
asked me, and I said I'd rather not give legal advice. He does have competent legal counsel to advise him about what his
Because-
remedies might be on Tuesday or thereafter.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
We tried to kick this can down the road back in July and work through these issues of documentation, as council knows, and it is where we are.
Is there anyone else in the council chamber address the council on an item that is not on the agenda? Matt tells me there's no one online. Seeing none, we'll move to consent.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion second to approve consent. Further discussion, seeing none, would the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? And that's approved by a vote of 4-0. Next item, we have a public hearing for Mid-American Energy. Did we publish the appropriate public notice?
Public notice was published in the Des Moines Register on June 3rd, 2024.
Thank you. Jeff?
Yes, get this up here just a second. Zoom in on this area. I can move. All right. Mayor, Council, good evening. For you tonight, we have two hearings. I'll talk about them both a little bit and give you the background. Waukee outfall sewer was installed. Will be turned over to the WRA. As part of that, they need to put a flow meter in to measure the flow coming out of Waukee. The flow meter is located just east of Alice's Road there. As part of that, they need to get electricity down to it. There's two parts to this. The Mid-American easement is a square easement, approximately 180 square feet, 179, I think, something like that. A little box, which is located right there. For their guy wires from their pole that is located in the right of way. And then the WRA, which is the second public hearing to talk about an easement, needs the blue line going down to that to install an electric line down to their flow meter. So those are the two parcels. I think the WRA easement's about 780 square feet. They're not very big easements, but both necessary as part of that. At this time, we have not finished up the actual agreements and easement. I guess we're smithing and hammering out the final language to get everything appropriate. I think we've reached an agreement, but we haven't got them completely approved. So at this time, it's a public hearing to answer any questions, talk about the proposed easements, and then we'll ask to table the actual approval resolution approving the easements and bring them back to you at the next meeting for approval.
Discussions for Jeff? If not, I
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
motion second to close the public hearing. Further discussion, seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? And we've closed the public hearing by a vote of 4-0. The next item would then be to table the resolution until the June 27th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second to table the resolution. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote?
This iPad's like a racehorse. Mine, you can hear it on.
And that passes by a vote of 4-0. Next up, we have the public hearing on the WRA. Did we publish the public notice for that?
It was published in the Des Moines Register on June 3rd, 2024.
Thank you. Anything else to add, Jeff, on that one?
No.
Any questions for Jeff? Any members of the public to speak on the matter? Seeing none, I
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
motion second to close the public hearing. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? And that passes by a vote of 4-0.
Move the resolution granting permanent utility easement. to the- Oh, sorry.
We got to entertain a motion to table that.
We're gonna
resolution.
table that thing.
Gotcha.
Move to table until June 27th.
Second. Motion second to table public hearing to June 27. Further discussion? Being none, will the council please vote? And will clerk please post that vote? And that passes by a vote of 4-0. We'll take up both of those on the 27th.
I'm pretty excited to get to number 4, Mayor, so
Well, good.
I'm excited Shadow Creek too.
Well, we'll get to Tasty Tacos. We'll see if Amanda can keep things going here.
Yes, Mayor, Council, good evening. So tonight before you have two resolutions related to Shadow Creek West. The first is to approve an amendment to the zoning change and development agreement. That amendment is to modify the driveway restriction on lots 1, 67, 81, and 88. Those are the 4 lots in the community that are actually triple frontage on Northwest 183rd and Warrior Lane, then off the 2 side streets. When we were drafting the development agreement, it was kind of the easy button option just to say no driveways off the side streets, Alderleaf or Valley View for those lots. But there is a particular home builder that Vista is working with that has brought forward a design layout that would require the driveway to be in that location. So working with Vista, we drafted specific language to maintain adequate separation from Warrior, and then also require the home front door still to face Northwest 183rd Street to keep that continuity with the rest of the neighborhood. So with that, staff does recommend approval. Planning and Zoning Commission did review the request at their meeting on June 6th and also recommended approval. And then the second resolution is just to modify the final plat notes to be consistent with the amendment, assuming it's approved tonight.
Questions for Amanda or action you would like to take?
Move the resolution approving second amendment to zoning change.
Second.
Motion second to approve the first resolution A. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will clerk please post that vote? That passes by a vote of 4-0.
We'll move the resolution B, amending notes on Shadow Creek.
Second.
Motion second on resolution B. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? And that passes by a vote of 4-0. Now on to Tasty Tacos.
Vista, you were in my way of tasting.
I mean, thank you for your development.
Thank you for the development.
There we go. Okay, Mayor and Council, before us, we have a request for approval of a site plan amendment for Tasty Tacos, Inc. They'd like to open a franchise location at the existing building located at 2249 Northwest 86th Street. The site has a long history of restaurant and commercial entertainment uses, starting in 1975 as Red Lobster, and most recently it did house the Rex Billiards Club, which is currently working on their own remodel for a new location in Clive. Let's see, the request also required a Board of Adjustment approval to allow a restaurant use to exist on the site with a reduced number of parking spaces, as our current ordinance requirements created a hardship on the site by effectively prohibiting a restaurant use based on the ability to add the required amount of parking necessary for the building. The variance was granted, allowing the use 75 spaces instead of the current ordinance requirement of 87. And just some amendments that were included in here. Probably most notably, we are removing one of the accesses. Currently, there's an access here and an access here. We are limiting that down to one access. This allows for additional parking stalls. It also allows for a better ADA compliance for getting accessibility into the actual building itself. It also helps with some of the grading and provided areas for stormwater management. Yeah, I think that's it for that side. On top of that, it also, removing the access also provides more modern access management practices. By instead of having people exit out through here and being this close to Northwest 86th Street, it does require them to come down here. And if there's any queuing necessary, they do have the length of Northwest Frontier Street or frontage road for that. Perfect. Additional items that they are, man, I need to get a holder for that. The grease interceptor is also being replaced, and the trash enclosure was recently located here. They are moving that to this location here. It allows for additional parking and better aligns their drive aisles. Finally, we'll flip over to what the building will look like. I'm trying to make this fast for you so you can get your taco center.
No. Yeah, we can zoom out a little bit, I think. Beautiful. Okay, so it looks like a Tasty Tacos. The updates include some painting of the structure, a replacement of some of the mansard roofing to a muted red tile, as well as some additional mural components. In these kind of empty spaces here, the restrooms are located here, so requiring glazing to face Northwest 86th Street didn't really seem like a great option to put windows into the bathroom. So they've elected for some aesthetic murals to go here, as well as also filling in some of these other areas to limit the amount of blank space along the walls. In addition to that, we also have some pretty significant updates to their landscaping. So along here, they are maybe. There we go. Gotta make sure we see all the trees. So they are adding a few more trees. There were some dead plantings down over here that they are replacing. They are also replacing the parking stall landscaping screening along Northwest 86th Street as well. This just adds a bit more green to the site. Obviously, there's a lot of pavement here, but the updates they are doing are bringing the site further into conformance with our current zoning requirements. Let's see, we don't have any.
Further into, are we not there yet?
So it would require them to have, I think, 17 trees, and there isn't ground space for 17 trees. So we've kind of found the in-between where they're adding as much landscaping as is possible on the site, but it's not fully in conformance with the landscaping requirements. Let's see,
With
and
stormwater retention, or how are we working the stormwater plan with this?
yeah. So stormwater is due to the size of the pavement that's being replaced and adjusted. There were stormwater requirements from a stormwater manual. They have opted to utilize an infiltration trench that collects the runoff and eventually diverts it up to the existing storm sewer that is in Northwest 86th Street. It does have some treatment capabilities here within the trench itself. There is also an existing, it's not showing on this plan, but the existing stormwater access down to the south as well to capture the stormwater that pulls from the drive to the south. Any other questions?
One more question. There's a lot of business in this area right
Mhm.
here. What's the thought process? I see you haven't received any comments, but it's got a little bit more of a traffic flow to it.
Mhm.
From staff's perspective, would that cause any problem with any of the businesses? Is it going to be a good flow? What's your thoughts?
So our thoughts when looking with the redevelopment on this was that it had plenty of access from the south and from the north. The additional access was probably something that would cause more of a concern, but we haven't received any sort of commentary from anyone who felt like it was a detriment to their current business. And the general flow of the site is improved and access into the frontage road and then ultimately onto Northwest 86th Street is also better managed with having the reduced access.
So,
Thank you.
I did want to ask about the stormwater on the
Mhm.
south side. You mentioned that it's not shown, but there's already stormwater like access. Is there any treatment capabilities on that side?
I might have to divert to Doug and his historic knowledge of the stormwater in this area. As far as I know, there is not actual infiltration or water quality. It is really just water containment.
And Doug, before you speak, if you could just add to Shrikant's question, that was going to be one of mine, is if it's headed to the south at all. We talk a lot about Lenan being its new dumping ground. Or can we take care of it ahead of time? And we say when we redevelop to the north, we're now redeveloping to the north. So how are we taking care of Sherkan's question.
Just again, the historical context is this site was approved by the city of Clive for construction in 1976, 5. At that time, stormwater management was not a thing. So this site, a little over an acre of paved surfaces, has no current stormwater management occurring on the property. Everything is directed to the southwest corner, discharged into an intake system and conveyed down 86th Street to Walnut Creek directly. Our current stormwater management ordinance would call this a minor or incremental improvement. So it's matched against incremental stormwater management. So the areas that are being disturbed, all of that new or replaced concrete, that area is being treated for water quality. And that's the infiltration trench. The rest of the site that is undisturbed, existing concrete, existing pavement conditions is simply draining in the same way that it existed for the last 50 years. With respect to the dumping ground in Lenan Park, this particular drainage area is generally unrelated to Lenan. This water is conveyed, as I said, through the storm sewer in 86th Street. Lenan is actually discharged out to the east through Harbach and that direction. Principally, this site, again, as an incremental improvement, is making stormwater management better. But until the site is redeveloped, more than 50% of the site being
Great.
scraped or a more substantial reconfiguration of the site improvements, there would be no stormwater management required. And we'll get into it in a little, at a future council meeting. That circumstance is something that will need to be addressed by the council because of the imposition of the recent Iowa legislature and its preemption on stormwater management for redevelopment sites. So what you're getting is in compliance with the ordinance. It is an incremental improvement and staff would recommend approval of it.
I mean, I get that it's in conformance with the ordinance, but you know, if they're willing to work with us, which hopefully they are, is there an opportunity to put anything towards even a little bit of treatment or, you know, beyond just capture and dump?
No applicant. I don't want to speak for the applicant. Certainly, we have worked with.
Yeah, Monty might be online.
Oh, Monty Applegate's online, yes.
Yes.
Okay. We've worked with the applicant for a number of months to try and address again the incremental improvement to the site, because even that it's a challenge. The existing condition, that's going to be some expense to do simply the compliance that is required under the ordinance. Going above and beyond, adding more stormwater management to the system is going to be pretty challenging because there is very little green space on the site. So any improvement is going to involve not only the installation of stormwater systems, but tearing up parking lots and putting parking lots back. So again, the applicant can certainly speak for themselves in terms of what they're capable of doing. But from, again, a staff perspective, we think we've kind of gotten as much as is reasonable for this level of reinvestment.
It's definitely an improvement, right? I mean, just these little improvements are improvements.
Mhm.
I've always been though of belief that the applicant needs to make this decision more than us, but less parking, right? I would take 3-4 less parking spots just to put some green space in, right? And I just don't, most of our parking lots are made for the holidays or something, right? And the worst case or best case as a business owner scenario. And so in the future, I'm not holding up a Tasty Taco Street 2 blocks from my house, but but in the future, I'm for less parking spaces and not planning for the best case scenario, and more green space. And we kind of did that at the hotel, down on Hickman. But anyways,
McCoy?
the hotel. Yeah, the hotel.
Monty, you're unmuted if you want to speak at all.
Yeah.
Monty's the applicant.
Yeah, thank you for listening tonight. My name is Monty Applegate with Snyder and Associates. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yep.
Okay, I'm at 2727 Southwest Snyder Boulevard in Ankeny. And we've been working with staff on the stormwater management. The infiltration trench was a solution that we worked out with staff. And the goal of that trench is basically to capture that stormwater drainage on the north side of the site, get it into those intakes, and then a majority of that water is actually going to sit in that rock trench and infiltrate into the ground. And only during heavy events or reoccurring events would it outlet out that pipe into your storm sewer intakes out on 86th. So that's kind of where we're getting some storage and water quality, and we're trying to reduce the amount of water getting into your storm system. So that's kind of where we went with that. And that's a pretty big investment for the client to make above and beyond, remodeling the building and so forth. We really would not be, I guess, too keen on doing anything else in that southwest corner, if possible, in lieu of what we've done on the north side. Parking, Tasty, I love Tasty Tacos as well as it sounds like all of you do as well. They do a very steady business, and I think that they're happy with the amount of parking that the city was willing to work with them on. A lot of their other metro locations have pretty steady traffic and have very similar parking counts. So, we're really happy that staff worked with us on the open space issue and then the parking compromise. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything.
Any questions for Monty?
Thanks, Monty.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a great night. Thank you.
Again, what we're looking for is approval of the site plan.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion second to approve the site plan amendment for Tasty Tacos. Further discussions? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote?
It's fast.
And that passes 4-0. Thank you, Catherine. Richard, Linan Park.
Mayor and council, thank you. Tonight, we're here for a couple different reasons. First is the check-in with the council regarding the updated concepts for Linan Park. So a couple months ago when we brought this forward to you, there was quite a few comments and suggested for changes within the park and kind of how we approach the overall scope of the park. So tonight we're here to kind of talk through that with you and have a dialogue about that. Jay Blue with Smith Group is online. He'll be kind of going through the updated concepts, and then following the discussion, we'll have a consideration of a contract amendment with Smith Group to reflect the larger phase one scope. But before Jay jumps in, and I know he's going to share his presentation here, but just a quick overview of what kind of the big points that we heard from the council at our last meeting that we've worked with Smith Group to address, and you'll see presented here tonight. First was the larger phase one scope of what we wanted to see with the park and how much we're going to do out there. So we worked with them. Basically, the quickest way to describe that is everything north of the Harbach Center will be included in this phase one, and that'll be reflected in the larger construction costs. And I know Matt will probably discuss kind of how we want to fund that at the end of the discussion. Second is flexibility. We wanted to see flexibility in how the space and the park was used out there, more opportunities for informal uses, whether it be picnics or kicking the ball around or throwing up a net to play volleyball or to crow or any sort of way, both current and future. How can we kind of, as much as possible, future-proof that? 3 was connectivity with the surrounding neighborhood as well as potential future redevelopment. So we've talked a lot about redeveloping those parcels along 86th Street between Alice and Harbach. How can we have a design and a concept that also will connect to those future redevelopment in the long term? 4 was covered gathering spaces. Want to make sure that there was opportunities for people to gather under some sort of shade. So those are, you'll see 3 different picnic shelters there of varying sizes that'll have electricity and places for people to gather informally and formally. And then finally, stormwater, a couple different things related to that, concerns about the park being split up by the stormwater, concerns that it was going to be kind of a constant stream of water through there. And then finally, having the flexibility with a long-term redevelopment north of the park that we could do that. And we didn't want to have to be kind of forced to do the stormwater underneath the elements right now. So we're able to work with Smith Group to reconfigure that. And you'll see that that could be done at a later date when redevelopment is more likely. So with that, I will turn it over to Jay and let him kind of go through some of this.
Thanks, Richard. I will share my screen. Hopefully everyone is able to see my screen right now. Is it projecting okay for you? Oh, I see
Yep.
it.
Yes, I can see it.
Good, thank you. I'll go to full size. Thanks for allowing us to come back and bring some revisions and some updated ideas for Lenan Park for your consideration tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you tonight. Some of this content you've seen before, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I want to jump right to the updated concept, but just a reminder, this is Lenan Park today. There is a bathroom facility on site. There are playgrounds on site. There's a futsal pitch there on site, and then you have the Harbach Center itself here at the south end. It's serving as a community facility. It's got library functions in it. It has the rec bay where the old fire trucks used to park. That's all part of that Harbach function. What we did at a really broad level was to try to set the site up so we had an active zone, a strong central core that your community is able to access from a couple different directions, and then a flexible space. And that resulted in a concept that looks like this. So what we've done is we've taken no change to the Harbach Center. I think in the previous version, there was a couple ideas about what could happen at the Harbach Center, but basically Harbach in phase 1 does not change. The only thing that happens would be to remove the rooftop portion over top of the old parking facility there. The wall would stay, adding a new sidewalk down here. But basically, in line with that RT diagram that I just shared with you, there is a active space here, the north end of the park, where we've moved the existing basketball court or rebuilt a new basketball court. We've moved the futsal courts up along Alice Avenue. There is a central core that has an open shade structure here. So this is open on this end. This would be bathrooms and the pump facility for a splash pad on the west side. There would be a splash pad facility, and I'll show some images of what that might be like. And then updated playground space. And then the south end is dominated by flexible play space. So open lawn area. The red dashed lines there are just meant to give you a sense of scale. They represent a U8 scale soccer field, not intending to stripe or mark soccer fields out here. I'm just using that as a mechanism to say, look, the flexible field is about the size of 3 U8 soccer fields. That's about the size of that space there. And then throughout the site, here below the basketball, east of the playground, and at the very west end, other open lawn areas that could be used for picnic. They're large enough for the Takra pitch. So you've got a Takra pitch that could fit either north, south, or east, west up here below the basketball. A Takra pitch that could fit over here. And of course, a Takra pitch could be set up anywhere within this flex space.
That's crazy.
And then badminton areas. So in addition to that, one of the comments, as Richard indicated, was this idea of ensuring that there was more open, covered space where people could gather. So we've looked at how this structure here might incorporate, adjacent to the bathroom, some covered space right attached to it immediately as part of that structure. And then some additional covered park spaces that would have picnic tables or picnic structures underneath there, but open spaces, open covered spaces. And then if you recall, in our first concept, we had a big sweep of stormwater that came through the whole site. And we've looked at a couple different strategies and tried to find a way to we still need to achieve some level of stormwater management. That's a requirement we need to do here. But we've looked at some different strategies for how that could be done. So in big strokes and broad strokes, this is the updated phase one design. And if I didn't make it clear before, phase one would go from Alice to immediately north of Harbach, from the west side here, where the Festival Street would in the future go, over to the edge of the Crest Manor Apartments, the Glacier property on the east side. One of the questions we had in that first drawing that we had done for you the last time we were here was about how we could use the park for future stormwater control. And then at that time, we were showing a vault structure up in this location here. We've since looked at how to redesign this such that we've left this open lawn area here, and we are able to make it work with the pipe falls, the elevations of the pipes, that we can get a large vault structure. I call it a vault. It's not a vault. It's not a concrete structure below the ground. It's a series of storage spaces that they're more like silvacells than they are like a concrete vault. So I don't want anyone to have this sense that there's a big concrete vault under here. They're like silvacells, but that would all fit down here future. And so the way that we are looking at designing this is that this site stormwater will work such that it can come down to this vault in the future, but in the interim time, they will all link together with a series of pipes, and they will drain back out at the southeast corner here of phase one. So this would be a future condition. This would be what the phase one condition would look like. As part of the phase one, we would likely run the lines so that it's set up to go. And then if you ever want to do that, the lines are there, and you can build that structure and it's good to go. So we also took a look at evaluating what those stormwater spaces would look like. We're really looking at spaces that are, I think we got off on the wrong foot last time when someone talked about this being a riverine condition. It's never intended to be a riverine condition. They will have water in them under certain types of storm events, and then they will dry back up, and they will be dry planted, native ornamental planted areas. So they'll be providing habitat, they'll have ornamental value, and then during flood events or flood experiences, heavy stormwater experiences, they will hold and detain water until it passes through the pipe or infiltrates, but they are not standing open water, flowing streams, river systems. That's not what's happening. We also looked at ensuring that the flexible lawn spaces, so we called it the picnic lawn. There's there's a flex lawn here, there's a flex lawn here, as I pointed out, and then a great lawn at the south end, and an additional picnic lawn on the east side, really trying to ensure that the lawn spaces have immediate adjacency to the splash pad, the play area, the main covered picnic shelter spaces, and that they were sized appropriately so you could use them for different types of events. So this is not at all, as an example, this flex lawn is not at all sized for a regulation soccer field. But could 3 kids take a soccer ball out there and play soccer and just goof around? Yes, they could. There's plenty of room for them to have a nice little pickup game of just kicking the ball back and forth to each other, or throwing a frisbee back and forth with one another, or setting up the Tacroft net and playing a game of Tacroft. With regards to the splash pad, we've been looking at a couple different opportunities here. One of the things we've been talking about is the splash pad having potentially 2 types of characters. So the splash pad, I'll point it out again, is right here at the center of the project area, center of the park. The 2 types of characters would be more of your traditional play squirty spaces. And then at the southern end down here, we're looking at conditions that might be more like this, where they're lit, they're squirting up out of the concrete or out of the paving surface, but it allows the community and the city of Clive to be able to take this plaza space and come all the way across the splash pad area for certain types of events, to set up tents on it, to set up food trucks on it, and really maximize that space as a hardscape surface that's a flexible hardscape surface. And then you can have the lights on, and no splashers running, right? No squirters running at that time. We also took a look at a couple different images of the building, and I apologize, this is the wrong slide. So for some reason it's pulling up the wrong presentation right now, but I apologize. But we're looking at images more like these right here, these first three right here. So taking inspiration from the historical train depot in Clive and looking at developing park structures that have this gabled roof, this pitched roof condition, that would have a closed component at one end and then an open component that would have picnic tables at another end. So looking at really trying to be inspired by the history and the culture of Clive and reapplying that to the Linan Park space.
I don't want to get into the details too much today, but on that last one, what dawned on me after I saw this the first time is really study the user groups, and outlets are a big thing, right? Any Friday, Saturday,
Yeah.
it's full of crock pots and anything you can think of that plugged in, they plug in.
You
So
bet.
with some of these, I just don't see the outlets. And again, we have the outlets in the ceiling now, and they are literally crawling up in the ceiling and dropping drop cords. So just
And-
something to think about.
And I think one thing that we've talked about too at a staff level is even though the smaller open air shelters, to make sure we have electrical in those as well. In terms of that accessibility, knowing that you have different family groups that might want to have separate spaces, and make sure we have electrical at all the spaces.
Might be nice if we could consider solar as well. I mean, I know they're fairly small for some of these ancillary, but like that main one especially looks like it's got a pretty good roof area.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't part of our presentation, but Richard and Matt and I did just receive an email from our architecture partner on the project saying, hey, let's get together and have a discussion. So your comment is really timely about ensuring that there's significant outlets out here. Just a back and forth we had today was talking about, do you have countertop? If we took this image, this top image here as an example, where my mouse is tracing, what would happen if you had a countertop there that had outlets, and you could put the crock pots and the coffee cookers or coffee makers and things like that up on a shelf like that, and be able to plug right in. So just starting to kick around ideas about what the architecture might be like out there. And then from a play standpoint, the play area here that we're showing is bigger than what we were describing in the first concept that we brought to you. Everything that you're seeing on the right-hand side are catalog pieces that fit the budget, fit the project intent. And really what we're trying to show is there's a lot of variety in the aesthetics, from something that might be a very form-driven and architectonic to something that might be more naturalistic. But all of these are catalog pieces, and we can just be thoughtful about the pieces we select, how we arrange those pieces with the plane manufacturers, and really achieve a really high level, high quality and fun experience for the kids. So just representing there's a variety of different types of play experiences we could have at the park itself. So I'll stop there, and I can stop sharing if you'd like me to stop sharing, and happily answer any questions, or back up and look at another slide we've already shown.
One thing I'll mention too is we see the playground as a specific opportunity for some really good neighborhood engagement. And we've been talking with the school district about a joint event in August. And we've made the design team aware of this too, as an opportunity to really seek some engagement on the different playground designs. Again, a lot of the kids refer to this park as Red Park because the playground is red. And so we know that's a pretty big iconic piece for the kids for the park. And so we see that as a really nice opportunity to, again, throw some different versions out there, kind of similar to what we just did with Stonegate Park in terms of getting opportunities for kind of the neighborhood to weigh in and what potential playground designs they'd like to see.
In the past, we used Crestview. Some of those kids had some ideas, and perhaps we could engage them as well in this process, along with the local neighborhood, as we've done in other park design processes too.
One of the things we're excited about that Matt was just talking about is that hopefully really awesome event back to school that we're working on with the school district. And one of the ways we've actually talked about that engagement that you just kind of mentioned is potentially work with the Smith Group team to do high level, kind of block out the areas and spray paint. This is where the playground will be. and then have someone out there with some concepts that people could wander around, throw some stickers on, or give us suggestions on, even with the spray ground as well, and just all these different park elements. So I think there's some really great ways that hopefully we can capitalize on the school district support and kind of working with them to really get as many kids and families out there to get some of that input from them.
I was interested to see the lighting with the splash pad. And it reminds me of a splash pad I really liked in Cincinnati that allowed you to choose music. And then it would bubble up to the music. And so kids or adults too could choose. So just would suggest, I don't know how much that would cost, but it was really cool. And it would be nice to have something that cool in that park.
Is that the Bellagio, Susan?
It was a park in Cincinnati, right across from Music Hall, that also had a big dog park, and it was just really a neat feature.
A few of you should revisit that one, and I think there's one in Summit County that I'll go to up in
Yeah.
Colorado. That's
Tours, is that what you're asking?
I tell you, I wish we would have probably finished this park a lot earlier, because we might need to scrap this whole thing now that the Grimes launched their splash pad in their park. I mean, that thing is pretty awesome.
It's cool.
So we might want to revamp ours. It's cool.
I haven't seen it.
There's tons.
It's nice.
I sit there every time. It's nuts.
Like Stanger is a park connoisseur right now. He appreciated Grimes, but it's a little too babyish for him,
Oh.
No.
what it's worth.
Music.
Yours,
Music
in
and stuff
Stonegate,
like
it's next level,
Got it.
not
Okay.
babyish.
So I know
I
it's-
apologize to the team here. I brought back up the slide I meant to show of the architecture here. Murphy's Law. If there's a 50-50 chance that you're gonna grab the right slide, there's a 75% chance you'll get it wrong, right? So. Any other questions I could answer about the updated phase 1 design for Lenan Park?
I'm pleased with the changes. I think we've come a long way from where we were, previously. I think you've addressed a lot of concerns of the council. I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I like the direction it's going.
As I've shared with the council, of course, we're doubling the construction cost for this phase from 2.5 million to 5 million. And as I've shared with the council previously, we've got a number of different sources that we'll be bringing together. More local option sales tax into this project. We've seen some savings from some recent street bids that had local option sales tax funding that we'll be able to redirect to this in the short term. We'll also have some additional bonding opportunities here in the next year. Again, the schedule is basically laid out to design the work, have the public input here this summer, maybe a little bit more into the fall. Get all the construction drawings, design ready to go for bidding this winter, and construction for the entire phase 1 in 2025, weather dependent, of course, but that is the plan at this point. And to have so it gives us that year to put all the financing pieces together to come up with the additional resources that we've identified. So we're at a staff level, we're happy with where the project's at.
Any further questions for Richard about the project? Otherwise, do you want to comment on the resolution?
Say it again, sorry.
You want to comment on the resolution?
Yeah, so what you have before you reflects a change order with Smith Group to cover the increased scope of phase 1. So our original contract with Smith Group covered what was our original phase 1 for design, bidding, and getting it ready for construction, as well as some of the master plan elements that have been discussed, will continue to be discussed, stormwater master plan for the overall site. So you've heard a little bit of just the discussion on some of the work that's been done to date. There's additional work that they're doing for the larger watersheds that kind of meet down at University Boulevard. Additionally, they're working on concepts for the second phase of Harbach Boulevard. So all of that was covered in the first contract with Smith Group. What you see today takes that a larger scope and gets that all the way to the bid documents and construction. So
Richard, would that include the connectivity down to the Greenbelt too?
yes, so that also includes concepts for that. And actually, Jay, maybe we could bring that back up. He had a couple slides on that. We could show you that real quick. We've considered a couple options for that, and I know we're recommending one of the options as the one they pursue a little bit further.
I'm pulling it back up for you, Richard.
Perfect, thank you. And I could just run through the council through those real quick and tell you why we're kind of recommending the one option.
One thing I'll mention too, Jay's bringing that up, is staff and design team is also actively working on the conceptual design of the next phase of Harbach Boulevard's reconstruction. And that kind of links Lenan Park to the trail segment down to the green belt that we're talking about, because that'll be a function of that street connection to where the on-street trail that'll connect and then take you south into the green belt.
So one of the things that we'd asked them to do is find the safest and best way to connect this neighborhood to the Greenbelt. This is basically the only neighborhood within the city of Clive that doesn't have a safe and easy access to the Greenbelt from their neighborhood. So this has been a really key element of this. And so kind of the first foray into starting to look at what's the best way to do this, Smith Group team went through 3 different options to figure out what's the best way to get people down there in a safe way. So the first one, you can see option 1 on here, is one that would kind of generally follow over to 86th Street and then find your way down to the Greenbelt along 86th Street. This one was tossed out pretty quickly due to the number of crossings that you'd have to figure out and get people safely across. You'd have to cross 86th Street once, you'd have to cross Swanson Boulevard once, and you'd also be along 86th Street almost the entire way. It really just felt like this wasn't the best and safest way to get people down there. The second one comes a little bit east, so coming straight south from the Harbach Center along the street there and taking a jog to kind of southeast along the street, and then another jog down to southeast here before crossing University Boulevard. What really kind of ruled this one out was the crossing of University Boulevard, because that aligns up directly with the truck access into the Buckeye Terminal. So then what we would be doing is introducing people and semis trying to cross. And so we just really felt like that wasn't the safest way to get people safely down there, which led us to option 3, which is the preferred alternative that we would be recommending to the council for the connection down there. And Jay, maybe just flip to the last slide since that zooms in a little bit better. So what this one is like Matt talked about, we'd be coming along the north side of the rebuilt section of Harbach Boulevard there with a wider sidewalk / trail over to 82nd Street. And then what happens at 82nd Street, there's actually no street there, but part of the right of way and a stormwater sewer easement exists there. We could come from Harbach Boulevard all the way down to University Boulevard without having to cross any driveways or any streets. Then at that point, crossing University Boulevard, we could do that with some sort of median and some sort of pedestrian signal there that doesn't conflict with the entrance into the Buckeye Terminal and creates a much better crossing, safer crossing through that area there. And then in the kind of immediate term, we would take down and probably share the Wittern driveway to cross the railroad tracks. And then we own all that property there that would have another safe way to get down to the Greenbelt. So we think this is overall the safest and best way to get this neighborhood connected to the Greenbelt itself. Obviously, this is very high conceptual at this point, but believes the best alternative to really do a really cool and safe trail connection for this neighborhood.
Yeah, and the construction of this is not included in the CIP yet, but that's part of why we wanted to do this conceptual work, to start to scope in of what that's going to look like and what the potential costs may be. And of course, we have to work with some property owners on this particular trail segment.
Any questions on that?
I'm only grinning because I'm holding back my comment of the Swanson bike in the gauntlet.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Richard on that? Again,
Move the resolution, approve the contract amendment to Smith Group for $758,640.
Second.
motion and a second on the resolution. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? And
This iPad. Just not like my other ones.
Go on that, Councilman.
that does
So
pass
new.
by a vote of 4-0. Item number 6, we have deleted, so we'll move on to number 7 on our animal protection and control. Matt.
Your Honor, this is the second reading of the updates to the dangerous dog ordinance. We haven't received any comments since your first reading and would recommend approval of the second reading.
Move that ordinance number 1146, having been considered by the council and voted on for passage prior to its final adoption.
Second.
Motion is second for the second reading. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? And that passes by a vote of 4-0. Next up, we have approval of pay rate for our incoming police chief, Matt.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm excited tonight to present to you Captain Mark Rayberg, who is with us here tonight, recommending to you as our next police chief. Captain Rayberg has been with the city of Clive for about 25 years, served in about every capacity you can serve in the police department, and has served as our captain here recently, overseeing the patrol division of the department. Captain Rayberg competed with a number of other applicants. We had over 25 applicants for the position and went through a series of interview panels here a few weeks ago, excuse me. Feels like a few months ago, probably. A few weeks ago, went through some interview panels, and following those interview panels and some background work, we're recommending Mark for you tonight to be the fourth police chief for the city of Clive. So they're for a community that was incorporated in 1956. So that shows you in terms of the consistency and stability that we have in our police chief position, and excited for Mark to continue that standard here in the city of Clive. So Mark's here before you tonight.
Captain, do you have anything to say to convince us to vote in your favor?
When Tasty Tacos opens, they're on me. So, we got that covered. I just thank you all for taking part in the process. Those of you that did, Mayor and Susan, Ted's not here, and of course, the city manager. It's a great opportunity. I'm thankful that you are considering me for this position. I understand where we've come from and where we need to go. And I'll try to keep it brief, but yeah, it's a great opportunity. I'm really excited to get started should you approve me tonight. So I would take any questions if you have them.
There aren't any questions. We just need a motion.
I will motion approve pay rate for new
Second.
police chief.
Motion is second. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote?
And I'd like to say, Your Honor, a big thank you to, again, the Personnel Committee. We had the department heads as well as our Civil Service Commission involved in the interview process, and then Police Chief from Urbandale as well, who was involved in the interview process to provide that outside perspective. So Chief Johansson. So again, a lot of people were involved in the process, and so appreciate that we were able to get to this result. Look forward to the next chapter for the Clive Police Department.
And for the record, that passed 4-0.
Very good. Tasty Tacos are on me.
Congratulations.
Thank you. The only other thing I guess I would say is I've been fortunate enough to work for 3 chiefs, the only 3 chiefs we've had. I'm one of the few people that can say that. I appreciate everything that Chief Vanham has done, his mentorship for me, but Chief Cox and Chief Diamond as well. So don't want to leave them out. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next up, we have a resolution hopefully approving the city manager's salary and benefits package. You have in your packet the memo from the Personnel Committee. We reviewed Matt's performance over the last year, and it was all very positive. So you can see in the memo, we looked at comparison cities and arrived at his salary and benefits package. Susan, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add.
I just would say that it was a really good process again this year and good discussion, and definitely recommend approval.
Do you have anything to say in your defense?
Oh, my defense. So that's usually a Councilmember Weaver comment. Thanks, Mayor. Again, appreciate the council support. Very much enjoy serving the city of Clive in this capacity and getting the opportunity to help shape the future leadership of our departments, just with, like, for example, with the police chief hire that you just approved. We've got a lot before us, and we'll talk about a lot of those things in strategic planning. And just from the staff perspective, the more this council is working together and shaping those priorities and giving those directions to me and to the staff, the great things we can continue to do for the community. You know, for example, like Lannan Park being a top priority. that we talked about earlier tonight, and it takes a large team. I'm just one piece in that kind of machine, but a lot of the people that are here in the council chambers, and I appreciate their support and the council's support. That's all I have.
Backwards, let me just make the resolution help. Move the resolution approving city manager's salary.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote?
Listen,
It's a tough vote for you.
I went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Suspense is killing us. 4-0, it passed. Very good. Thank you. We'll move on to reports. Srikant.
Just a couple of quick items. For those of you who haven't finished the DART surveys, please do that. I think they're actually supposed to be back tomorrow now, although if you need a little more time, I think they'll still take them if you can finish them. If any of you need the link, just let me know and I can forward it.
Could you resend that to everybody?
Yep. And then the other thing is, I know I'll actually let Matt speak more about this probably, but CHS's Clive Historical Society has reached out about some updates on their end as well. I admittedly have been a little removed from that since I was out of town last week, but
Yeah, I'll just comment on it quickly. I'm hoping to have a discussion item for you on the next council meeting to kind of walk through some of the facts in terms of the Historical Society and what they're looking to do, potentially disbanding, and what might happen to the assets at the Swanson Park property. They are going to make an appeal for additional membership in the next city newsletter as kind of a last appeal to the community. Well, again, we'll have more details. Staff has been working to kind of collect all the facts of the different ownership dynamics of the property. Again, the city owns the property and the Swanson House leases it to the Historical Society. The depot and the caboose are owned by the Historical Society. And what may happen, it's definitely not a function of resources for them. It's a function of community participation and lack thereof. And so we'll have more details and kind of seek some direction from the council. The Historical Society is moving fairly quickly on this. They are already starting to seek potential buyers for some of the assets that they have. So that'll be a discussion point that we'll have for you at the next meeting as the staff right now, we're putting everything together for you.
Thank you, Matt. Anything else, Srikant?
that's it for tonight.
Eric.
The MAC met along, Mayor and I both attended that. We discussed things like housing, regulations, infrastructure, communication, how do we work better as a metro. We've got some subgroups going. So we'll keep everyone more informed of that, how that fleshes out.
Anything else, Eric?
Nothing this time, Mayor.
Well, just a segue, one of the items that we did discuss was Beggars Night. And I think the consensus is that we should match what most of our neighbors are doing. And Waukee has decided to stay with October 30th for Beggars Night. And my sense is our tradition has been to do October 30th, and we should probably stay there at least for 2024. And then what I'm going to suggest is that we gather data from our citizens to see if there's any interest in changing to the Saturday before. And we, again, had someone last year approach us on that. Or even, I know this is crazy, on Halloween itself. Don't know. So I think it would be good to have a data-driven decision, see what our citizens want. We've got survey vehicles that we can use to gather that information and look toward 2025. And then for 2024, stick with October 30th, unless someone thinks otherwise.
I let the kids vote, right? And if they want like
Sure.
multiple, if I was a kid, I'd vote on.
The whole month of October.
Right,
Yeah.
Every day. So.
All 3 dates.
Oh, the outlier seems to be Windsor Heights. They've already moved to Saturday night. Okay. All right. I left some floor plans for you to look at. We had our MyLog meeting, Metro mayors and city managers last night in the Harbach Center. And so we had a presentation from Matt Anderson on what they're doing as far as the property nationwide and how they're repurposing that for city use. And included in this is city council chambers and how they're revising those plans. So those are there because, of course, we're going to be looking at revising or renovating this space. So we thought that might be helpful. Matt, I don't know if you want to add something about that at this point.
No, it was a good discussion. And we shared, we're working on our own renovations of this facility. There was a little bit of a discussion on council chamber security. They've been looking at that too, especially with, Des Moines regularly has protests at their council meetings in terms of how they set up things. And so there was actually some good discussion tonight or last night in terms of what they're thinking about and things that we're thinking about for this room as well.
The original design they looked at had glass all around the council chambers. And then someone suggested, well, won't protesters just start banging on the glass? So they're going to revise that. All right, Susan.
I enjoyed attending the Christian Brothers Automotive Recognition Lunch last week, and also the staff appreciation event was really nicely done. That's it.
Thank you, Susan. Michael.
I sat in on DART. It was a great reminder of DART, and they passed the budget last week. And it is that revised kind of hybrid budget of losing some money, but filling the gaps with that one-time money. So I think they're still hopeful of that they'll find their way out of this hole. But I'm not so sure what they're seeing that I'm not seeing, but I'm sure Chircont will jump back in on July, but they're moving in the right direction, I guess. So some cuts to come too and changes. So that we're in on that budget.
Yeah, the cuts they were trying to keep it to a minimum with, some of the technology services for the main things that we were hearing feedback on getting cut.
Yeah.
Internet and Wi-Fi and things like that.
Yeah, and also some of the ancillary digital planning services, like the one of the apps, and then some of the signage was going to be released as well. So there was some concern around that, rightfully so, in my opinion. But that was kind of the administrative cost cutting that still needed to happen.
But they did $500,000, I think, in administrative cuts.
Anything else?
Is it, sir?
Anything from legal?
Had a busy week.
Yeah.
Long list tonight of a few things. First and foremost, wanted to bring up 2024 seems to be a little bit of a repeat of 2020 related to bridge jumping at Campbell Park. And wanted to kind of circle back with the council a little bit. In 2020, as many of you remember, I know Chircont wasn't on the council at the time, but very vigorous debate about what to do related to prohibiting jumping off the bridge. And the council did vote to approve an ordinance to ban jumping in June of 2020. So we've been fielding a lot more complaints here in the last few weeks. Seems like the group kids is gathering again, a new group of kids. And so police chief and I have been talking about it along with legal counsel. We kind of refreshed our memories back from 2020 and legal opinions and a whole lot of things that was going on back then. Our intent is to continue to enforce the ordinances that are on the books and start to indicate to the kids. Again, they've been compliant, and the chief can speak to this, but they've been compliant when our officers have responded in terms of not blocking the trail. That's been probably the biggest complaint, I think is fair to say, chief, not so much the jumping, but the actual blocking of the bridge, trail riders trying to get through, again, very similar to what we had in 2020. But we will be intending and updating the signage to make sure it properly reflects our current ordinances to enforce the laws that are on the books. Now, obviously, our officers have discretion that they utilize when they're in those situations. And if they're getting compliance, obviously, they're going to take that into account. But wanted to make the council aware or give the council any opportunity to provide any different direction that you may want to see. But again, I think if we have individuals that are being very voiceful of their non-compliance and our officers are present, I think the council needs to have and the officers need to have the tool to arrest somebody with a simple misdemeanor if they're violating our ordinances. So that is what is in the books right now. And the police department and the city intends to enforce it unless we receive any different guidance from the council.
It seems to me a problem if the kids are thinking it's okay as long as they aren't blocking traffic, because it's supposed to be about not jumping off the bridge. So how are they getting that message in the process?
So they're right now and again, I don't want to speak for all the officers that have been present when they've been called out, but we've been focusing primarily on the trail blockages because that's where most of the complaints have come from. Not so much on the jumping side at this point. But again, we're going to, if this continues, we're going to take it to that level is the intent. And that back in July of 2020, that seemed to help with compliance a little bit more quickly. I don't know, Chief, if you want to comment on that at all.
Sure. We did get great compliance back in 2020, but it's a different group of kids now. We do have 2 ordinances on the books. Both are simple misdemeanors. One is for blocking the trail. The other's for jumping off the bridge. There are some challenges in catching someone in the act. As a councilman knows, when he walked out there the other night, it's a little difficult to approach. Everybody sees you coming, but on the other hand, when the officers go out there, they've been getting good cooperation from the kids out there. And but we do have the option of writing a citation for a simple misdemeanor for either of the violations. But again, we're going to have to see them or have person using the trail to say that kid right there was blocking the trail, wouldn't get out of my way, was disrespectful or whatever. So there are some challenges in enforcing it, but all it's going to take is a few citations to go out, and I think it will probably clean up the problem. As Matt mentioned, our signage needs to be updated. I think our signage still says no blocking the trail. We're going to update that signage to reflect no blocking the trail, no jumping from the bridge. So there's that fair warning. So I believe our signs disappeared somewhere between 2020 and here, believe it or not.
Yeah, we've had to replace them a few times. And I think in one of the replacements, we lost the jumping part. So we need to make sure that that's communicated on the signage.
You know, just a side note on that too. I know that they're using social media to activate groups at certain times to meet at the bridge as well. Instagram and Snapchat, things of that nature. So that's part of the fuel for this issue.
Yep.
I think some of the takeaway too is remember, it's a safety thing. Even though the water is high right now, it will not stay there. And so it takes one jump and one neck to be a problem.
And after a flood, logs, rocks.
We don't know.
It used to be a hole. Now it may be filled in with debris, and our creek is not crystal clear. So
How often do we have officers on on bikes out there? I mean, to me, you see that officer more often. You're not gonna know when they're there.
we do that on an overtime basis because we can't really pull somebody off the street, put them on a bicycle for a while because it takes away from our officers out on the street. But we do that on an overtime basis, and it's officers sign up for it. And usually on the nicest times when it's the busiest is when people sign up for it. So over the years, it's worked out pretty well. We don't have a set schedule that we have to have people out this day, and this day. Because if we have a rainy day, nobody's on the trail, but
Yeah, I just want to see it happen more often. So I get the sign up and all that, but I would like us to look at, I don't know if it's a set schedule, but it's just good interaction with the public anyways. I know, if I saw an officer I'd welcome that, right?
People appreciate it.
Yeah. So the more we can, I'm not opposed to it being a regular deal.
and we can certainly do that. We've got an overtime budget for it, and we can push that to increase, especially this point in the year with the concentration on that area.
I mean, if I'm an officer, I'm not signing up for today. But that's when they're gonna be jumping. Right? If I'm a kid, I'm gonna be jumping today.
Well, and so
it's 90 degrees and I want to be in the water.
To that point, you know, and I'm usually not a proponent of this, but is there a potential for like a battery powered camera that can be placed?
Well, thank you for
Weaver would be for it.
reinvigorating the
Weaver would.
discussion from 2020. We
Yeah.
did review those as enforcement opportunities, and I'd be happy to talk with you offline about some of
Okay.
our concerns through that.
And I do appreciate you bringing up cameras, sir. I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One thing I
There
will,
are
Buried
there are
that
at
a
least
long
3
time ago.
topics we can cover on that, but I appreciate if you have a different approach on it, let's talk.
Sure.
one thing I will mention
Weaver's
too,
changed his mind on
and
the surveillance.
a lot of times with the trail patrol, it comes down to staffing, right?
Mhm.
And one thing I wanted to bring up, another note I wanted to bring up is at your last council meeting, I think it was last or the one before, we approved hiring of a new police officer. This was to backfill the Sergeant Liska's retirement. However, that particular officer is in the National Guard and has got called up for active duty starting in September for 400 days. So they were set to go to the academy in August. Now is going to be going on active duty in September, so cannot complete the academy. So we essentially will not have that officer for 2 years, probably by the time they complete their work. And so one thing that we're looking at right now, and I've authorized the chief to move forward with this, is to go ahead and staff up. We know that particular officer we will have, but and then it'll be 2 years. And so we can pretty much figure we're going to have a time period where that we'll be able to work things out 2 years from now. But we're going ahead and making additional offers. Now with the promotion tonight too of Captain Rayberg moving into the chief position, we have another backfill to do. And so that's part of the challenge right now, is just keeping the staffing up in the patrol division to be able to do additional special assignments like bike patrol. Because we have 2 that are on FTO right now that hopefully soon will be on the street by themselves that have completed the academy. And now we'll have at least 2 probably going to the academy in August. And so as we start to, we have a really good list, civil service list. This is probably the chief and future chief will tell you is probably one of the lists we're most excited about that we've had in some time in terms of our civil service hiring list. So we have some good candidates here that we'd also like to bring on. So I've authorized them to go ahead and hire that forward, knowing that Jermaine, we're not going to see him probably for 2 years because of his service. And also similarly, I've authorized Public Works. We have a retirement that'll be happening in October. And we had another good hiring list for our Public Works Operations Specialist positions that you all approved, the 2 additional positions you approved in the budget. And we had 3 good candidates on that list. So we're going ahead to hire that forward, knowing that Randy Howell, one of our longtime operations specialists, will be retiring in October. So again, trying to play forward on the staffing as best we can to keep pace with that. But of course, in the patrol division, that's one of the struggles that we have, is to have that ability to have the staff capacity to meet minimum staffing on the street that we need for patrol, and then the special assignments like bike patrol at the same time. So we're working hard at that. Any other questions on the bridge jumping piece before I move on to another item? Again, appreciate those that were able to make it out. Councilmember Klein and Councilmember Jedkins, as well as the mayor for the staff Food Truck Friday appreciation night last Friday. Yeah, I know Councilmember Klein had the opportunity to go out to see some of the bridge jumping while we were there that night. We actually had one of our police sergeants who responded to a call out there while we were there. Great night, had a really good time. We had great weather, good music, we had probably 60, 70 staff there, which was great. So really appreciative of everybody coming out. And again, these are kind of part of our quarterly staff appreciation events that we've been doing that have been really successful in the last year. Also on the staff front too, that I wanted to mention is we just recently received our workers' compensation premium renewal. And I know this is probably hard to believe, but our mod factor actually went down even further to 0.46. I don't think you'll see any organization that has one that low. I've never heard of one. And that means real savings for our premiums. In the next budget, even with our payroll, because usually it's based on your payroll amount going up, we're going to be saving another $23,000 on our premium. So again, I think kudos to the staff, for being safe out there, and similar to what we've done in past years. Last year, we're going to find a way to thank them for that. But again, great news for Clive taxpayers, for our staff who are staying safe. Again, I don't think you're going to see a 0.46 mod factor pretty much anywhere. So,
That's a great story to tell. I think we need to, share that story with our residents through the number of communication channels we have. So on the average, mod factor is 1.0, so we're less than half of that. So that's really substantial.
Yep.
Great job to staff on that.
Yeah, great job there. Mentioning the renovations of this facility, the mayor, myself, and some others will be doing some tours of some facilities later this month. A couple other council chambers that have been recently renovated to kind of start to learn off of those renovations. So we'll be doing that here later this month. Last Saturday, our Public Works team had the opportunity to train and implement or deploy our aqua dams, which thankfully we haven't had to deploy since 2018. But Saturday morning, they did a kind of a department-wide training. We have a number of new staff that have joined us since 2018 to kind of learn. And also it was an opportunity up for us to see how those bags hold up since they've been rolled up for a while. And happy to say that we've seen like they're holding up pretty good. Maybe some minor things, minor patching here and there, but for the most part, and I'll show you, I'll send a picture to you tomorrow for what that looked like when they did that on one of the driveways on University Boulevard last Saturday morning.
Matt, were they able to utilize that new piece of equipment that they staff formulated for that Build a Better Mousetrap and process improvement? Were they able to utilize that?
To roll it up?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually how they deployed it.
Cool.
Yeah, that's the aqua dams have been sitting on that, so then we can deploy them quickly.
Perfect.
Yep. And then also wanted to mention, just a reminder for Council 2, as you look at your schedules for July 16th and 17th, if you could give me an hour, that would work for you to start your strategic planning interview with Lyle. Would love to get that on the calendar.
Got off the phone with him.
It's coming around to that time of year again. A reminder too, on Monday at 4:30, we'll have the ribbon cutting for the new Stonegate Playground. We just sent the press release out today about that, and we've sent a communication to the neighborhood, the email list that we had from those that voted on the playground. We'll have a little ice cream social to go along with it, so that'll be Monday at 4:30. And if it's 90 degrees like it is today, that'll be a day you want a little bit of ice cream. So
Bridge jumping.
and then and that too. Last thing that I wanted to mention then is Alice's Road. So we had a neighborhood meeting earlier this week on Tuesday night with our friends in Waukee, kind of a joint neighborhood meeting on the phase 1 of the Alice's Road reconstruction. So this is Horizon or just north of the Hy-Vee, and it'll be just short of the Douglas Parkway connection with Alice's Road. So just that phase 1 portion is what we focused on, and had a number of probably 50 in attendance between Clive residents, Waukee residents. Kind of heard a mixture of feedback on the intersection treatments that we were proposing, whether roundabouts and the city of Waukee wanted to make sure we also introduced traffic signals as a part of a potential intersection treatment. So there's some work that needs to be done with Waukee. I don't think they're necessarily 100% on board with roundabouts at all 3 intersections. So we're having some discussions on that, and there may be, we might bring this back to you for discussion further on June 27th, because we need to really start to finalize that design if we're going to get something going out to bid next winter and construction started in 2025. Could be a hybrid approach of certain intersections having roundabouts, and maybe the Horizon Drive, which is closer to that Hy-Vee signal, maybe being a traffic signal. Again, we're trying to work out that, but I'll may have follow up with you all on that as we go further, particularly maybe at the June 27th meeting, because we really probably in the next month need to really lock down that design for phase 1. So we heard a little bit of a mixed bag. I would say there was probably more pro for roundabouts than opposed, and most of those were Clive residents actually. That's for the roundabouts. So kind of an interesting, debate. Obviously, we've got 50-50 split, so we have to come to some agreement between the 2 communities on what that design needs to be, because we're both paying 50-50 for it, half for it. So
5-sided roundabout and the other way of.
traffic signal. Yeah. So there's so we're evaluating some options, and we'll be bringing that back to you and probably having some further discussions here in the short term to work out that design. And I'll have some follow-ups for a lot of these items in my weekly update tomorrow. So with that, that's all I have, Your Honor, unless there's any questions.
Any questions?
I had a
for
lot
Matt?
tonight, yes.
Anything further we need to discuss for the good of the order? Seeing none, we'll adjourn at 7:49.